Merci de respecter les gestes barrières. Veuillez garder vos masques s'il vous plaît. Merci für het aanhalen van de gestbarrière. Halt maske wunschklift un. Thank you for respecting the barrier gestures. Please keep your masks on.
So good evening to the second conference that we have in this in the frame of the exhibition of Worldpress photography. And today we are very happy to welcome Tom Van de Weghe, who is here, and Ines Kurschat from Conseil de Presse, who will present the evening and also the conference. Tom Van de Weghe will speak to you. He has a presentation, and then they will speak together, and then we will open to the public for Q's and answers, question and answers. And so a little bit about the exhibition that we have now. We decided to organize this big exhibition, which is coming from the Netherlands, and we do it with partners here in Luxembourg, with Conseil de Presse, so Ines Kurschat, but also with the Commission of the UNESCO, and also with Zentrum für politische Bildung, and also the Nationale Resistenzmusee. And this is the second conference, and next week we will have a table ronde with some photographers, press photographers from Luxembourg, and the evening will be presented by José Hansen. And then in the fall, we will have other two conferences that we couldn't have now because of COVID and the pandemic. So I wish a pleasant evening, and I will give, I don't know if you say it in English, but I give the word, ich gebe mal das Wort weiter, to Ines Kurschat. Thank you.
Yes, so hello, good evening all together. I'm really delighted to be here. So my job now is actually to do a little introduction and to present you Tom Van de Weghe. I met him first time in Georgia like 2 years ago at a gathering of different European press councils. And he presented the work he was doing at Stanford University at that time on deepfakes. And I was fascinated and terrified at the same time. So since then, I think that deepfakes and the technologies around it have evolved very much. And so I'm really delighted now, and I'm also very curious what he's going to tell us about artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and the challenges it brings for journalism, and especially for visual journalism. So let me introduce him maybe just a little bit, because he's got a long CV, a long record. He's a journalist. He has worked as a journalist, and he's a cross-media expert, I think I can say. He is an award-winning journalist and documentary maker himself, so he has reported practically from all over the world, from Russia, from Asia, but also from the United States and Latin America. From 2007 through September 2012, Tom was the first Belgian TV correspondent in Asia, where he established VRT's Beijing Bureau, and producing cross-media stories for television, radio, and online already. He has also reported from forbidden territories such as North Korea, Tibet, Xinjiang, and Myanmar, who's again in the news. With, I believe, now over 20 years of experience as a journalist, he knows plenty about multimedia journalism in the 21st century, whether it concerns research and production, filming, editing, recording, and distribution. I think his trademarks, we could say, are mini documentaries and compelling stories told with a high-quality footage. He wrote several books, for one called like Tom in alle Staaten. He traveled 2,000 kilometers around the US to discover a polarized country in the run-up of the US elections. Another book, he gathered his experience in China, and he also wrote a culinary book with his wife, I read, on different cuisines throughout Asia. So if that is not like really a multi-talent. Tom led VRT's Washington bureau as bureau chief from 2012 until the end of 2016, before returning to VRT News headquarters in Brussels. In 2018, Tom received a GS Knight Fellowship at Stanford University, and in the following started researching the impact of artificial intelligence and blockchain on journalism. So his field of expertise are video forensics, so deepfakes, and authentication. In 2020, Tom developed a course of a journalist on machine learning and AI, together with the London School of Economics and the Google News initiatives. Some journalists will know about it. They do a lot of very progressive stuff. He also produced an investigative documentary on facial mask shortages in Belgium during the COVID-19 crisis, so like really up to date. Yeah, and I think he will tell us now more about his work on deepfakes. I'm really happy to have you here, so I'll give you the floor and I'll meet you later for the questions.
Thank you so much, Ines, for this long introduction. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here with you in Luxembourg. I must say, as a foreign correspondent, I've traveled all around the world except to Luxembourg. And how beautiful it is here. I will definitely come back with my family as soon as we are Belgians, we're allowed to travel again for pleasure, of course. I hope my experience as a journalist and geopolitical expert will help you understand tonight one phenomenon that is considered as one of the biggest security threats of the future, synthesized media, better known as deepfakes. And let me maybe start first with a little clip that you maybe have seen just before Christmas, and it's this one.
For nearly 70 years, I have kept a tradition of speaking to you at Christmas. But on the BBC, I haven't always been able to speak plainly and from the heart. So I'm grateful to Channel 4 for giving me the opportunity to say whatever I like without anyone putting words in my mouth. If there is a theme to my message today, it is trust. Trust in what is genuine and what is not.
It continues a little while, but maybe you've seen it and maybe you've heard that it's a deepfake. It was published by Channel 4 just before Christmas, and I was asked by one of my colleagues if I could tell that this was a deepfake. And yes, I did, because I have a trained eye, and so do you probably have, because you know that it's a deepfake. But a lot of people didn't realize this at the beginning. Now, Channel 4 was badly criticized for creating this deepfake. They were told it was unrespectful, disrespectful to treat the Queen like this. And you can discuss taste, of course, but their intention, the intention of Channel 4 was noble, you could say. They wanted to create awareness about synthesized media, and for this we should applaud them. In fact, it's the same reason why I am here tonight, to focus your attention on this crisis of trust that we're experiencing, a crisis that will probably stay around for a long time, I'm afraid, a crisis that will get bigger and bigger unless we train ourselves. So let me first start by explaining you what is a deepfake. Well, it's a computationally created video, very well done, a synthetic video, as we call it, a deepfake, a term combining deep learning and fake news. It originated about 3 years ago, on the social media platform Reddit, with a user who called himself Deepfake, and a new epidemic was born. Not this epidemic, but the bigger epidemic maybe on the long term. Now, the case of the British Queen is, of course, very interesting as an example. You could say, in fact, this was a piece of satire, and more satirical TV programs are using this technique of deepfakes to create new programs. We should be careful before we condemn every deepfake, of course, but not every deepfake is a piece of satire. This lady, for example, she's a colleague of mine. She's a Dutch journalist, very famous in Holland. She was recently deepfaked in what we call a revenge porn clip. And this turned her life upside down. It was used to discredit her work, discredit her role as a journalist. And although the clip was taken offline pretty fast, they tried to track down the creator of this deepfake, but they couldn't find him immediately. And the damage was done. Millions of people have seen that video, have seen this clip, and some people thought it was real, just like people thought that clip of the Queen was real. And Diane is not alone. Other female journalists have experienced the same thing. Rana Ayub, for example, she's a Muslim journalist from India. She received death threats after a fake sex video appeared online, and thousands of other women, far less well-known than Rana or Diane, have become a victim too of deepfake videos often shared in closed micro-networks. Some people say, well, that deepfake thing, it's all not much ado about nothing. It won't be that big of a problem. It won't be an apocalypse. They compare it with Photoshop, for example. We know Photoshop for a long time already, and this didn't mean that the sky came down on the world. Almost every professional photographer is using it, and everybody has been photoshopped in his life, maybe. And yes, I have to admit, until today, we didn't see the big political deepfakes yet, except for some dubious cases in countries like Gabon, in Africa, or in Malaysia. For your information, in Gabon, the president was almost, there was almost a coup against the president because he appeared in a video that some people called a deepfake. It wasn't a real deepfake. And in Malaysia, a minister was accused of being in a sex scandal with help of a deepfake video. There hasn't been any big political fallout for those people. That's right, but that doesn't mean that the deepfakes are already doing harm in our society. That doesn't mean that it's already undermining the credibility of many people. And some months ago,
in de afgelopen decennia.
Some months ago, in Belgium, we had, in fact, a world premiere of a political deepfake. Maybe you remember, or you've seen this one with our former Prime Minister, Sophie Wilmès. It was created by the environmental activists of Extinction Rebellion.
In de afgelopen decennia hebben we een dramatische toename gezien van ziekten zoals ebola, Mexicaanse griep, SARS en nu COVID-19. Wetenschappelijk onderzoek toont aan dat deze uitbraken verband houden met de verstoring en exploitatie van de natuurlijke omgeving.
Well, of course, this Extinction Rebellion, these climate activists, they quickly confirmed that this was not real. But you see the use of it. It's becoming more and more trendy almost to use deepfake to get your message out. So yes, deepfakes are in fact becoming the biggest security threat of the coming decades. And this is the reason why I've not so long ago, a year and a half ago, I applied for a fellowship at Stanford University to become a research fellow and find ways to fight this phenomenon. And I started at Stanford this research team together with some PhD students, some machine learning experts, and some engineers. And our goals were threefold. We wanted to raise awareness, foster cross-disciplinary collaboration, and exchange ideas about detection. First, let me explain what I'm quickly gonna talk about tonight. First, I want to paint a picture of the problem today. Where are we on this technology, and how rapidly is it changing? Also, what can you do with it? There's a lot you can do with it. Then, of course, what are the threats? The threats of deepfakes spreading all over the world. What could be the consequences also for our work as journalists? And finally, of course, the solutions. I'm going to offer you possible solutions to think about. Now, first, let's paint the picture how big the problem is today. Let's start with around 3 years ago, when I was first alarmed by this phenomenon. There were only a couple of thousands, a couple of hundreds examples of deepfakes around. Then by the end of 2018, about 7,000, and today, beginning of 2021, we estimate that there are almost over 100,000 already. So every 6 months, we see the amount of deepfakes doubling all over the internet. As it was the case with Diane and with Rana, we've seen a cascade of mainly fake porn videos featuring people's favorite actresses, for example, celebrities. That's the majority. And most of the targets, they are living in the US and in the UK. And the entertainment industry and the fashion industry are among the most targeted sectors. Now, how to create a deepfake? Well, today you can go on YouTube, pull up countless tutorials with step-by-step instructions on how to make a deepfake on your desktop, on your laptop, or you can just order a deepfake on YouTube for $20, $30. It's becoming cheaper and easier to create, and we call this DaaS, or deepfake as a service. Compared to 2 years ago, the techniques for developing synthetic media are becoming better, more common, and easier to use. You only need some time, some energy, and a good graphics card to create these hyper-realistic deepfakes, even without much knowledge of machine learning. And what do we understand under deepfakes? Well, it has now become a passepartout term for every kind of synthesized media, from pictures to video, to audio, to text, and photographs. Okay, I would like to play a little game here. I love to do this game. There are some people in this space, so I would love to see some hands rising. What picture do you think is deep-faked or not? Completely generated by a computer. What lady is real, and who thinks it's the lady on the left? Put some hands in the air. Yeah. What lady is real? Who thinks it's the left one? Yeah. Yeah. And nope, it's wrong. It's the lady on the right. But you have another chance. Who is real here? Huh? Is it the right one? Put some hands in the air. Who thinks right is real? No, sorry, it's the left one. Okay, who do you think among those people are real? Well, I will tell you immediately. They're all fake. They're all fake. In fact, Facebook discovered they were all fake profiles supporting Donald Trump a while ago, and they were all taken down from the platform. In fact, last week, with the protests in Russia against the arrest of Navalny, we discovered that all these profiles appeared online of people who were undermining the protesters. And you know what? They all appear to be fake. They were created by a generative adversarial network, a GAN, what we call, and I'll explain it to you later. And to show how far this goes already, this is a LinkedIn profile of a woman named Katie Jones. She graduated from Stanford and worked at an important think tank in the US, and she was very well connected to all kinds of officials in the government and so on. But in fact, Katie did never exist. Her picture was not stolen. It was, in fact, created from scratch by an algorithm. And this technology is progressing very, very fast. So this progression you can see here over the past 7 years almost. You can see it from kind of blurry, not very realistic looking pictures to very realistic a couple of years ago, and today you cannot see if it's fake or not. I'm now quickly going to show you a few state-of-the-art technologies, how to create synthetic media. This is already widely used among video editors today. It's introduced about a year ago. It's called Adobe Content Aware Fill on video. You can remove objects in video like you can in pictures, but there's also a tool now that can change the weather like this in any scene. Think of how difficult this will be for journalists to check what's real or not. This is, for example, a video, and you will see the difference. There's a car there, and there's not, and then you can just, that car is still there, but the content aware fill just deleted this picture. And this is what we call already a deep fake. Being used by some TV channels and so on. You can use also real people as puppets by manipulating their facial expressions, just with some selfies. So the pictures on the left are selfies, and then you can put any expression on any other picture that you have. Even a painting from an old Chinese philosopher. You can also do something like this with the Mona Lisa. You bring the Mona Lisa to life with a deep fake. People we never got video from. This was recently released. You can have people say about anything.
We live in a time of extraordinary opportunity. Breakthroughs in science, technology, and medicine are curing illnesses and solving problems that prior generations thought impossible to solve.
Now, the important thing to understand is the amount of what we call training data to create this kind of videos. It's getting smaller and smaller. So it has gone down dramatically, which means that more and more people will become vulnerable, of course. You only need a few pictures now to create a deep fake. Or what about this? This is a text-based editing software of a talking head developed by my university, by Stanford University. You just change the texts and it's being said in the video.
The market closed today with Apple's stock price at $191.45 per share.
Here we replace 91.4 with 82.2.
Okay. The market closed today with Apple's stock price at $182.25 per share.
So you just change the text and the person is saying those words. Can you imagine? It's easy for the weather forecaster, for example, if tonight it's going to freeze like -10 and he makes a mistake, it's only going to be like -5. And you can quickly change this in the editing room and say it's -5. But think of the consequences this could also have when it's getting in wrong hands, of course. Now, this is all research. It's not a product yet, but the progress is going very fast, very rapid, more rapid than people expect, and we see all kinds of application developed. For example, this, you can also recreate audio. You can recreate your voice with a fairly limited amount of samples with this company called Lyrebird, for example. You read about 10 minutes, a text, and your voice is cloned, you could say. Remember last year or a year and a half ago, a British businessman, he lost 240,000 euros because he was asked by his so-called boss to transfer this amount of money to his bank account. But afterwards it appeared that this boss was not real. The voice was recreated and it was used by cyber criminals to get the money from that good British businessman. So think of what can happen. And then, of course, real people as puppets. This person in the middle is not really dancing. It's a representation of a real person being driven by the person in the top left.
Hold on to me, glow.
So you can see deepfakes are getting better every day. This is one of my favorites. It's Elon Musk as a baby.
So apparently burping is funny today.
So yeah, film production companies or broadcasters could apply this technology for dubbing movies in foreign languages. The British company Synthesia is utilizing AI to synchronize the lip movements.
In this video, you will learn how to react in the case of an unhappy customer in one of our stores.
O atendimento ao cliente é fundamental e é necessário aprender a lidar com clientes irritados e descontentes, que podem não ter recebido o nível de serviço que esperavam.
So in any language you can choose. And then even more surreal, I think, how to bring back to life historical figures for educational purposes, like Salvador Dali.
Greetings, I am Salvador Felipe Jacinto Dali y Domenech. And I am back.
Even though...
So Salvador Dali was recently revived as a deep fake by an art museum in Florida. And now visitors can take selfies with him. And let's be clear, it's still taking some expertise to do a good deepfake video, but it's improving and becoming much more simple. All these applications will be soon readily available in our pocket, on our iPhones, on our smartphones, and so on. For example, the famous Chinese app TikTok.
You can call me Sam.
This is the Zhao app, but the TikTok app is, since a couple of months, providing a tool where you can just swap a face on any picture and you create a deepfake video just with the app. Pretty soon we also have personalized bots that won't be talking in text, but in all kinds of avatars. And last but not least, this is something interesting. You just draw a picture on your computer and the computer will generate a real-looking person with your sketch. So this is from a Chinese research lab. Yeah, it's opening a lot of opportunities, of course, for people who cannot draw very well. So I guess it's not difficult to see or to realize how deep fakes can be turned into weapons with what you just saw. And there's an explanation for this. As human beings, we have a strong belief in audio and video. I'll explain some threats now. We believe they're true on the notion that you can believe what your eyes and your ears are telling you. And it's that mechanism that might undermine our shared sense of reality. Because the provocative we tend to believe, and we share information that's negative and novel. That's what we do on social media, right? In fact, researchers have found that online hoaxes, online fake news is spreading 10 times faster than accurate, real stories. Now, we're also drawn to information that aligns with our viewpoints. And psychologists call that tendency confirmation bias. And social media platforms are encouraging this by allowing us to instantly and widely share information that accords with our viewpoints. So we have to realize that deepfakes have the potential to cause grave individual and societal harm. Just imagine a deepfake showing American soldiers in the Middle East burning a Quran. You can imagine that such a deepfake would provoke violence against those soldiers. And what if the very next day there's another deepfake in which an imam, for example, based in Paris, is praising that attack on these American soldiers? So we might see violence, we might see civil unrest, and so on. Also, history could be changed by deepfakes, or conspiracy theories could be fed. Imagine an American president announcing that the moon landing has failed.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace.
Yeah, so deepfakes can exploit and magnify the deep distrust that we already have in politicians, in business leaders, and other influential leaders. And not only might we believe the fakery, we might start disbelieving the truth. We've already seen people like Donald Trump invoking the phenomenon of deepfakes to cast doubt on real evidence of their wrongdoing. Remember that famous soundbite of Donald Trump a couple of years ago, something very bad against women, he said, when he was traveling in a bus just before the elections. And he said, yeah, well, I'd never told this. It was probably a deepfake. So this is what we call the liar's dividend. The risk that liars will invoke deepfakes to escape accountability for their wrongdoings. Anybody can draw to plausible deniability if someone could have made those videos, for example. And why should you believe it? It might well be fake. This is what it's all about. It's an erosion of trust that we see when it relates to digital visual evidence. And for me, what I think is the biggest threat of artificially created media is the volume of scale on which this is distributed. Just imagine with one push on a button, you can distribute thousands of deepfakes, and this is what we call a firehose of falsehood. But soon we will also see the ability to create individualized content that targets people one by one with individualized messages that are synthesized with audio and video that we just receive on our WhatsApp, for example. And how can we know if it's true or not? I mentioned already several examples of cybercrime, but this is already leading to an increase of cybercrime, and this is something to look out for. For example, this was recently discovered, a completely fake business advisory firm that is using fake pictures, fake people, and profiles to conduct crimes in the financial world, in the financial business, something that is to watch out for here in Luxembourg too, if you ask me. Last month, it was released that there are also bots now available, bots on your iPhone who can easily create a deepfake with a push on a button. It's on Telegram, the network, the platform created in Russia, the encrypted Russian messaging platform. So you download the image of a target, somebody you really don't like, you upload it to a Telegram bot, and it will generate a naked version of that person, of that image, and you can share it on your social media or on your closed platforms. But it's being used by cyber criminals already for blackmailing people, for extorting people, and for publicly shaming people. So this is how it works. So you send in a picture, the algorithm is taking off the clothes, and you can share it. It's a terrible trend that we're seeing happening. Now, what can we do to stop those deepfakes, to stop those threats, you ask? Well, first, let's have a look at detection, maybe. A little spoiler alert also, there is no silver bullet yet to detect deepfakes. It's clear that any technological solution involves an arms race, an AI arms race. It's AI against AI, as deepfake creators are quickly catching up with the latest detection techniques, of course. Think of how researchers found out that people in deepfakes in the beginning were not blinking with their eyes. Well, soon the deepfake creators put an algorithm in it that the eyes were in fact blinking, so it was more difficult to detect the deepfakes. But this arms race should not stop us from thinking of solutions. And with our deepfake research team at Stanford, we've created an internal challenge to come up with solutions. A fascinating approach is AI against AI, fighting back with the tools based on the same deep learning techniques that have been used to create the deepfakes. So you build a process which basically learns to detect the forgeries and then tells you if that's a real deepfake or not. It's using the same iterative process you use to build the forgeries. For example, with Sherlock AI, two of my team members developed this tool. It was promising with a detection rate of 96%. It's already been updated, it's getting better, but it's focused mainly on those portrait deepfakes. Other team members, for example, took another approach with neural hash, by allowing content creators to embed a so-called unerasable digital watermark in their media using a deep neural network. And then the third option is looking at where the images are coming from. What's their provenance? What is the source material or the elements that were used to build the deepfakes? Basically, the question that we asked with deepfakes is, how do you restore the trust in video, in photographs? And for this, I tried with my team to see if we could rely on blockchain technology. Blockchain, as you all know, is a new way of documenting data on the internet, and at the Stanford Design School, we've explored these new blockchain applications. And we designed VidProf, for example, a prototype that allows someone to track the provenance of a digital picture by providing a proof of authenticity. And in fact, this is the process, but in fact, a lot of companies are, because this research dates from 1.5 years, 2 years ago, some companies are already providing this as a commercial application. And these are some examples of these companies. They are doing controlled capture. So for example, in your iPhone, you take a picture and it immediately sends it to a platform where it's been labeled and checked and so on. Putting the original in a blockchain, and all of these companies are saying that they give a much greater trust in images with their tools. Now, think of the opportunities, of course, for example, for insurance companies or criminal investigators and so on. We see the rise of these secured platforms where you can exchange pictures that are securely captured. But we got to be really, really careful, I think. This is an example of a tool. You capture a picture, for example, when you have an accident with your car, and you immediately can send it verified to this platform. But we have to be really careful, I think, with this trend, because this can be abused also, of course. Now, maybe you ask yourself, what can we do with laws, for example? Are there any laws that prevent the creation of deepfakes? Right now, law is not up to the challenge of deepfakes across the globe. So yes, we have some local anti-deepfake laws, for example, in China, for example, in Texas, in California also. But these laws could be used against us, journalists also, of course. So we have right now a sort of legal vacuum that needs to be filled, and it should not happen on the country level, but I think it should happen on an international level, and we're going to need a more international response. The European Union is working on this also. Personally, I'm not we can discuss this later on, but I'm not a big fan of this. And there lays a big responsibility for the technology platforms, of course, the big tech platforms. We need to decide what do we want from those platforms, not only in Europe, not only in US. We can be a good example or give the good example, but in places like Myanmar, where it's very critical these days, or in places like Brazil, they also need help how to regulate this. And one concrete thing that I think of, we could ask of platforms, for example, and tool makers in the space like Adobe and so on, is that they should make detection as accessible as creation. So we should build like the seat belts in the software that we as users, as journalists or as photographers, we can embed a sort of a seat belt that we can discover, okay, this was a deep fake picture and we know it by this or this fact. And finally, I believe training and solution. These are some ethical guidelines that I developed because it could be useful for these technology platforms. Consent, I call it the 3 C's, consent, control, and collaboration is very important when you create this. Finally, I believe that training and education has to be a big part of our response as well. Reuters, for example, the news agency Reuters recently launched a free online course to help journalists to learn how to identify deepfakes and other platforms, other forms of manipulated media. And we have to realize that the biggest threat today is not coming from the deepfakes, that's right, but what we are calling the so-called shallow fakes, existing video that is being recycled, mislabeled, staged, or re-edited. For example, this famous example of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. It was the speed of the video was slowed down as if she was drunk when she was talking. It's a famous example. You can check it out on YouTube. Now, to detect shallow fakes like that, we journalists, we can already use excellent tools, for example, like INVID, the INVID verification application tool, made possible thanks to the European Commission, also thanks to European funding. It helps journalists to verify videos from social media platforms. And I also want to mention two other initiatives. That's Sensity AI and Reality Detector 2020. Now with Sensity AI, that's brand new, only since a couple of days, they launched this platform where you can for example, if you doubt a picture, a video, or a profile picture, for example, of somebody you want to check out, you can throw it in their platform, and their tool will help you establish how big is the chance that it is faked or not. They work with huge data sets to detect the deep fakes, but the tools, I must say, are not perfect yet. We could recently do a test with a clip like this.
Democracy is a fragile thing, more fragile than you want to believe. If the election fails, there is no democracy. I don't have to do anything. You're doing it to yourselves. People are divided. Your voting districts are manipulated. Voting locations are closing, so millions can't vote. It's not hard for democracy to collapse. All you have to do is nothing.
Well, I put it in that platform, in that new tool, and it said that it was a real video, so it was not a real. So the technology is not there yet. So let me conclude maybe with the US elections that I covered just recently. I covered them from the Biden campaign. And as you remember, the media, lawmakers and researchers had warned us and had warned the whole world that videos, altered videos using artificial intelligence could disrupt the 2020 US elections. But that didn't turn out to be a problem. Not that there was not anything or no disinformation available, but the misleading videos that contributed appear to be handmade, not with algorithms, but just old-fashionedly with tools like Premiere and so on. So created with conventional tools, like a clip edited to make it look like Joe Biden, for example, supported Donald Trump for re-elections. Let's have a look.
Turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get re-elected. We cannot win this re-election. Excuse me, we can only re-elect Donald Trump. Turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get re-elected. We cannot win this re-election. Excuse me, we can only re-elect Donald.
So that's what we call a shallow fake. It's traditionally made. And one reason why deepfakes didn't break through during the 2020 elections could be that they were not necessary. There was already too much other fake bullshit in the campaign thrown out there, of course. So yes, we've seen a lot of headlines warning us of apocalyptic consequences due to deepfakes, but fortunately, the apocalypse hasn't materialized yet. But the dangers of deepfakes, as we've seen, are real. We've seen that everybody could be a victim. And my point is that, and that's a point that I want to end with, we have to prepare. We have to prepare and build resilience. And we have to, like we are all waiting for the vaccine against COVID, we have to inoculate society against deepfakes. And this is the part where we all are involved. Everybody here watching, everybody in this room, we need a better radar for fakery. So as we're working through all these solutions, there's going to be a lot of suffering around. Luckily for us, we can still laugh with deepfakes like this one. Have a look.
Can you do an impression of him?
It's gonna be great.
We are going to build a wall, and it will be huge.
I will build a wall, a big one.
China, China, China. Here's your paper towels.
Can you do an impression of the president for us?
You're fired!
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Sure whether I should be even more terrified now. Having
more than 2 years?
Yes, more than 2 years ago.
Well, it changed. It changed a lot. It went fast since we last met in Georgia. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
Let me pick up just the last paraphrase that you mentioned, the U.S. elections, because actually I also followed it a little bit, just like hobby-wise, and I saw a lot of warnings around deepfakes coming, and as you said, it didn't come true. It wasn't that kind of scenario. The only really big video that made it through was the one that you already mentioned, Nancy Pelosi, with the story that she did. So I watched a video by an IT security journalist from the New York Times, and what she said, it's Claire Waddle, she said, well, actually, it's an alarmist hype. It's just a hype right now, and it's not that dangerous. It's not going to really gain the momentum that people are fearing right now. So what is your your stance to that?
That's always with hypes, of course. It's getting really popular to talk about it. Deepfakes has been in the news since 2018, and same with blockchain. We have the cryptocurrency, we have the bitcoins, and so on. But you have the hype, then it falls down again. But then it's getting mainstream, and that's what's happening right now, because the technology is getting so easier for everybody to use. People are getting more and more familiar with it, and I wouldn't doubt that somewhere in a basement, maybe here in Luxembourg or somewhere in Russia, teenagers, they have a lot of time now, people are having a lot of time to experiment with it, people are getting more used to these tools, and it's a matter of time before it's getting really mainstream. So you have the hype, then it's getting slowed down again. Now with the elections, okay, we didn't have big deep fakes, luckily, but it doesn't mean that the technology will go away. No, on the contrary, it's getting better and better and better. It's getting more and more normal. See what's happening now with TikTok, that app. My daughter of 14, she's now creating deepfakes. Like 2 years ago, I would never imagine that would be possible just with the iPhone. Mm. Yeah.
But if we're talking about, I was wondering when I looked a little bit into the topic, I thought that a lot of the progress that was coming on the software is actually coming from research labs. So then I was like, wow, it's the researchers themselves that are actually creating the problem. Is it not so?
Yeah, that's a really good topic, because that was my big frustration also when I arrived at Stanford University. As a journalist, I was already aware that this would possibly become a problem. And then I saw all these professors denying the fact that this could be falling in the wrong hands. And I was saying, like, shouldn't we, like what I just told, provide these seat belts when you develop these tools? You are creating this, and it could turn in the wrong hands. And they were denying this. No. You journalists, you're always looking for the bad stories. No, this won't happen. You should see the positive use of these synthesized media. It could open so many doors. And they have this very optimistic view. And maybe we journalists, we always see how it can turn bad. That was a bit frustrating. Also because I tried to get mentors and sponsoring for my research, and it was denied by a lot of professors. They said, no, you guys, but now 2 years later, they are all into deepfake research because they right now they understand that it could become a real problem. So it takes a while before they realize that. But in fact, like at Stanford, the heart of Silicon Valley, but also in Beijing, a lot has been developed and is being developed that could turn bad, but also could be very useful in daily use with our iPhones. Yeah.
So would be one way, maybe a possible path of solution also to think about the ethics for the research labs, not only the ethics that we use as journalists, but the ethics right at the beginning, at the production of these kinds of technologies.
Yeah, that's something that more and more universities are aware of. At Stanford, I was part of the foundation of this new institute, the Human AI Institute, to have more, to make humans part of the loop, and that AI shouldn't be created just to fix a problem. No, it should help humans, and it shouldn't be used against humans, and it should have ethical guidelines where the human is central in the whole development. So that's something that you see changing. Ethical AI is something that's been more and more present in universities, in their research labs, luckily, yeah.
You also mentioned in your talk the kind of cat and mouse race that we're facing, like everybody, you know, arming up and trying the good ones, trying to outrace maybe the bad actors in the field. We know the same type when it comes to police work. I was thinking, you know, the police when they want to get heavy crime, and also they are always, you know, asking for better tools, better arms. But do the good actors really stand a chance against the bad one? I know it's a little bit like looking into the future, but I fear a bit that because there will be probably also a lot of money to make with these technologies.
It's a big industry. I mentioned that company Synthesia AI, a British company. They're using these applications and they earn a lot of money with it. I mean, any company, any filmmaking industry could use this tool to, well, like Netflix, for example. You don't need to refilm or dub or anything. You just switch the subtitle.
You don't need the actors anymore, maybe.
Yeah, you don't need. Yeah, that's also something interesting, Ines. How about the future of actors? It's already, I've read plans and it's already in development that an actor could sell his whole being or from every angle, his voice, everything, to be recreated in a deep fake. And that a director could say like, okay, I need like Johnny Depp or somebody else, and I just get him from the computer. I don't need him anymore. Maybe for a good reason also, and then we let them do anything. So yeah, there's a lot of money involved with this, and like what you just told me, I'm not so optimistic that the good actors or the good people will get ahead of the people who have bad intentions. I mean, this software can fall in the wrong hands, and just the example with the blinking of the eyes, for example, that's for me, that's the most frightening thing. As soon as you find out how to detect a deep fake, you give up the solution, actually, and yeah, the engineers or the tweaks, they can easily change it again and make it even better. So it's a constant race, AI against AI. Yeah, it's fascinating, but yeah, scary in a way.
So I think one of the ways to distribute deepfakes has been, and probably also will be in the future, social platforms. You mentioned the pretty difficult question of regulating them. Already we know that Zuckerberg is not really into that, taking down, videos. I know that the Nancy Pelosi video, for example, Facebook was asked to take it down, and it took them, I don't know, several days, I think, to actually react on it. So how realistic is it that these platforms will really come up with a solution themselves or regulate the problem, or would it not maybe be more of a task of governments and parliaments to solve this kind of question?
Well, there's an interesting trend that I've noticed over the last years, that the tech platforms are more and more asking for regulations. That's something remarkable. I mean, and you see how Twitter and Facebook have been dealing with the former President Trump. I mean, if you told me this 4 years ago, I would never believe it. So you see this evolution of how the tech platforms are really aware of the fact that they need to self-regulate. But that's also a danger, of course, that they will decide who tells the truth or not. And that's something that we should be very careful, pay attention to, that they won't take over the role of government by saying he's telling the truth, he can be on our platform, and he's not. So after living 5 years in China, I know what the consequences could be of this kind of thinking, of course, that you control the freedom of speech, and that's something scary. But overall, I see a positive evolution, that the social platforms are more and more aware that they should do something. And in fact, for all the things that you can criticize Donald Trump, one of the last things he tried to do was to take away that power of social media platforms, and he didn't succeed. And I'm afraid that it won't happen with this new government in the US, because they have a lot of power, and yeah, it's questionable.
Maybe Europe can jump in, because
well, that's the strange thing in Silicon Valley, where I lived for a while. People are looking wary at Europe, but in a way, I also feel a lot of admiration because of the things that we are doing with GDPR, for example, and especially in places like California, they are now following the example of Europe. So we're not always doing a bad thing for the rest of the world. We can set an example, and that's what we do. Yeah.
I was wondering, because I don't know, I think there are maybe a few journalists also in this room, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have the impression that at least for Luxembourg, we don't really have a problem with deepfakes. We watch them, we hear about them in the news, but I haven't ever...
Your prime minister hasn't been deepfaked yet?
No, I don't think so. He had been hologrammed for some IT event, but I have never seen a fake news on him. But I was wondering, for newsrooms to prepare against these kind of fake videos or fake pictures, it would also mean to actually invest a lot. So can smaller newspapers or smaller newsrooms actually keep up with that kind of race? Or is it then only for the big players, and I think of CNN or bigger national players to actually compete and be able to do the work in this misinformation field properly?
It's very hard, yes, indeed, because you already feel that
more and more power is going to the tech platforms. They're also creating content. They're taking over our roles as journalists, as content creators for newsrooms and so on. I think we should stick together. We could help each other, and that's what we're trying to do in Flanders, for example. At VRT News, we're the public broadcaster of Flanders, the Flemish-speaking part. We're now trying to put a sort of institute where fact-checkers work together. And they're funded partly by the government, partly by commercial newspapers and so on. But you have like this group of expertise where you can rely on, and they do the fact-checking. Because indeed, a lot of smaller newspapers or smaller TV stations, they don't have the means or the budget or the people to do this. We now, at VRT, we have a team called DDT. It's about disinformation, data and technology, and we have some experts where journalists who are in doubt of a video or something, they can go to that desk and let them check it. But it costs a lot of money, of course, and it's a good experiment. I'm wondering how long can we keep up to this. Disinformation is a very big topic. It's a hype also, in a way, thanks to what we've seen in the US. Yeah. But if we want to keep up, we have to stick together, and we have to join forces with the smaller newspapers, smaller TV stations, and form this group of experts that will do the fact-checking. Because the technology, as you see, I mean, it's getting there, but not quite yet. It will take a while, so we cannot rely on technology alone. We need human experts also. Yeah.
So let me maybe open up the discussion also for the auditoire. Other questions that we can take, because Tom's here now, he knows everything. And maybe you have some questions too.
I must say it's amazing that in Luxembourg this is already possible. So
to actually
to see real people again in the audience.
Are they all real? We don't know.
Who's the deep fake? If you have questions, please shoot them. Yeah. We covered a lot, apparently.
I know that there's one editor sitting over there. I was just wondering, can we fact check? Have you had any experience with deepfakes of kind of fake images in your newsroom? Because I've seen the guy from Paper Jam is here, I think. Yeah, hello, Mike.
Well, I think we just observe as everybody does. But we're not really concerned by it. But I would like to say maybe two different things. One concerning the Luxembourgish market and deepfakes, or the previous version of deepfakes, which is just photoshopped images, which we have in Luxembourg with some media brands using them, Luxembourgish Privat and all this kind of publications. That's a regular thing they do each week. That's their business model, basically, just to invent truth, fake news. Business model based on quite totally non-AI fakes, but it's happening every week. And the other thing I was thinking about was, I remember over 20 years ago we had a discussion in task force in Luxembourg regarding the who's responsible about the content regarding internet providers, the providers giving access, the providers hosting. And at that time already, early 2000, the discussion was, well, it can't be us. It can't be the telecom provider. And now, with the tech platforms, which are massively bigger than the telecom operators, they still don't accept to be a publisher, and they are a publisher. They have to be considered as a publisher. The main question would be, is it not only the only chance to make them responsible as a publisher? Yeah. Because otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's in fact what Donald Trump tried to do, and to have them have this responsibility as a publisher. Talking about these big platforms like Facebook and Twitter and so on. But until today, it's not happening. I mean, Europe is hoping to get them have that role, I think, but yeah, I don't see it happening very soon. I'm afraid, because the power. I mean, and if Europe is putting fines on them, that's fine for them. They just pay it, and yeah, the lack of power of Europe over these big American platforms is still very sad, of course. Yeah.
I heard another aspect that I found interesting. You already mentioned that that the underlying thing is erosion of trust. And I read one article that I found interesting, who took it even a little bit further and spoke about reality apathy, meaning people would get, you know, a little bit like fed up whether a news would be really true or not. They would just not care because it's so much brouhaha around the question whether something is real or not, so that people would get apathic and not really care anymore about what is true or not. Do you think this is just like a dystopian view, or is that realistic?
I'm afraid we're getting there. Yeah, sorry. No, I also feel it when I look around in my own circle. I mean, we've all been locked down. We've all been locked to our screens, and people are getting tired of this also. I mean, I think COVID could play a big role in that also, in the fact that we don't know what's real. We have a lack of trust in our governments. Can they solve it? Can they not? I mean, in this way, the whole Corona pandemic, I think it could be a catalyst or fastening, speeding up this whole process of lack of trust in higher institutions, also in us. I mean, we could say we never had so good ratings as ever before. That's the numbers is probably the same here in Luxembourg. People are stuck to the news. But what about the trust of news? I don't know if that is climbing as good as our viewers, as our ratings, and so on. So, yeah, I'm not that. Yeah, especially with this whole deep fake thing, it's the erosion of trust is difficult to stop. Maybe it's a sign of the times, and maybe we're now at the lowest point. But yeah, difficult to predict.
I actually read that that people had a more optimistic view, because they said, like the example that you mentioned, Photoshop, that we are all more or less able today to tell whether something was photoshopped or not, and that maybe this could also become a competence that the younger generation already has. I think I saw some younger person here, and maybe because they are so much into TikTok and they see these kind of distortion mechanisms that they can use. Do you believe that it's maybe more our generation that gets the problem, right?
Yeah, but also the feeling, what you just described, that young people, they don't care anymore if it's real or not. They just see it and it's like, okay, that's the feeling. But yeah, they if it's real, well, it's fine for them. I see it with my own daughter. She's 14. And if I say, no, that's not true, that's fake, and she, okay, I don't care. I mean, it's like a new thing that it's like, it's not male, it's not female, it's like something in the middle. It's not real, it's not fake. That's a remarkable trend, and a bit frightening for us as journalists, because we want to find out the truth, of course. Yeah.
So, are there any more questions? Yes, over there.
Just wait for the microphone, please. So you were speaking about how to detect, and very often you are speaking about other machines that are able to give indication. But for human being, is it possible in any case to be able to identify without the use of other machines? And I would be curious to know, because part of this the development has started also with Ekman, with the facial expression, and the fact that we want to take away the keyboard. So based on that, a certain research has gone on. But I would be curious to see if Ekman would be able to identify a fake from a real one, just because of the emotions which are in a certain way faked.
Yeah. Well, that's why I did that little test in the beginning. And I must say, like, half of the people were wrong. So even pictures like the ones that are being created today, I would not be able to tell if that's true or not. So yes.
Only machine can give you the answer if it's really real,
yeah,
or fake.
Yeah, more and more.
This is really
more and more. Of course, for a picture, a machine is still better equipped to do this. It's getting better and better to discover if it's fake or not with its sensitive AI. For video, there are a lot of other factors that a machine cannot combine our detection ways. But for a picture that is already so good and that the human eye cannot see it, but a computer eye can, because he has to focus on one thing. For a video, there's so many other aspects that human eyes are still more trustworthy than a machine. It's strange to say, but it's a matter of time, I think, before machines can detect fake videos as good as we can. Because I've showed the examples from Elon Musk to, if you look good, even the deep fake of the Queen and so on, it's you can still feel it. You can, yeah, because there are little factors that we humans are still better at than machines. But for pictures, the computers are far better now.
You mentioned the twinkling, because
the
actually,
blinking,
yeah, the blinking of the eye. Actually, that was one of the detection, the ways to detect whether it was true or false.
Yeah.
And then I read that now it has progressed. Even another way of detecting false videos was that when real people speak, you would see change of blood coming through, and so, like, a little bit like red cheeks or something like that. And so somebody was working on a software to detect that, and then I heard, oh, but that probably was also then integrated in the first.
Yeah, well, that's something at Stanford we were looking at. So what Ines is talking about, that you go like with a magnifying glass, you go so close to a picture in a video that you can see almost the pulse of a skin, the blood flow and so on. But yeah, once this is developed, we looked into that with our team. Can we use it? And it was too difficult back 2 years ago. So yeah, but once it's being used, it can also be used against it. Of course, the machines are always behind. I mean, yeah, the fakers are always could get ahead of the non-fakers. Yeah.
So what about? I heard that there was an initiative from the Pentagon. Also trying to work on detection software. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, when I was living in California, that there was still a big effort on that, and it's still ongoing. They consider it as big as a threat as any threat, a military threat. So they invest a lot of money. Millions of dollars are going into research, and that's a good thing. And I don't see this happening here in Europe, unfortunately. Yeah.
Hi, I was just wondering about the different kinds of international or intergovernmental reactions that you either expect to see or hope to see in regards to deepfakes. I mean, maybe I'll sound very American in this, but what should I be pressuring my representative to do about these kinds of disinformation and deepfakes?
Yeah. Well, I think international corporations should, I mean, you gave the example, Ines, of Pentagon. It's military research. I think, and you should look at far bigger or on a higher scale than only deep fakes. I think everything that has to do with AI should be controlled or more regulated from a supranational level, like what we have sort of United Nations for. We would really need an organization doing something like that to see what kind of regulations could be imposed on a international scale and not on country or continent based, because just what I mentioned, Myanmar, Brazil, if they don't care about the international rules, they just do whatever they want. So like a sort of convention of Geneva that we used for the use of nuclear weapons
I was thinking about the killer robots, because there's a big discussion going on about regulating, putting out ethical regulation of how to use killer robots, and maybe that could also be some kind of path to take, because that's been discussed on, I know, on a European level and also on an international and supranational level.
Yeah, but like an organizations like the United Nations should deal with all these new developments of artificial intelligence and not leave it to the big tech, the big 9 tech companies from China and from the US, because they are writing the regulations now, and that's not a good thing, I guess.
Are there questions from the internet, Bob? No, it's quiet? Good. Any more questions? Okay.
No? Okay. I hope it was informative enough.
Yeah, well, I found it fascinating.
Yeah.
I have to admit that still I'm a little bit tense about thinking about the future, but hopefully...
Yeah, hopefully, like we've seen with the US elections, we feared a lot of deep fakes, but nothing happened. It stayed safe and stayed quiet. But what we discovered last week with the Russian protest, how it's being used to discredit protesters who are on the streets. I don't think that's... I mean, I believe that the government is also involved in that. So they are getting ahead. They're using the software already in their advantage to discredit protests, and that's maybe a trend that we should really watch closely, because that's frightening. If you see what's happening now, and also, I mean, I didn't mention that example, but on the internet, we are relying more and more. We're all buying from online shops, and we read the reviews and so on, and we trust the reviews. But research has now shown that more and more reviews are fake and created with the help of artificial intelligence and generative adversarial neural networks. So it's already being used to trick us in other ways that we don't expect. So you can easily create a written review, but now you can also create a person with it together with it. So that's something to yeah, it's not very optimistic, I know, but you see all these kind of applications of deepfakes rising, and that's it's not only about the great video anymore. It's about companies, about protesters. It's about so it's getting in all layers of society a problem. So maybe in a few years we won't talk about deepfakes anymore because it's everywhere. Yeah.
Maybe we have to invite you again in a few years to just, you know, make an update and see where we got and whether we
and hopefully COVID is then far away and it's not further eroding our trust.
So thank you so much, Tom. I really learned a lot tonight. I hope you did too. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, neimënster, for hosting the event and all the partners that participated. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was great to be here. I would love to take a picture with the audience and just maybe some lights in the audience, if that's possible.
Sure, yeah. Because
just to show Belgium that in Luxembourg, people can get out again. That's something that they will really look
can we have some
forward.
light, if you don't mind?
Voilà.